I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 55 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, Social Development, and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee will resume its study of the subject matter of Supplementary Estimates B 2022-2023, Vote 1B, under Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, votes 1B and 5B, under Department of Employment, Social Development, and the Service Standards for Passport Renewal. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, meaning there will be members and witnesses appearing in the room and virtually online. I would ask you to direct all your questions or inquiries to the chair and wait until I recognize you before speaking. You have the choice of speaking in the official language of your choice. If interpretation services are interrupted or a problem, please get my attention. We will suspend while they are corrected. I will remind those attending virtually, if there's an issue with your headset, if you do not have a House of Commons approved, then I will not recognize you. You will be able to participate for voting, but not in the meeting verbally, for the benefit of those providing translation services. Again, in accord. Yes, all comments must be addressed through I, and we will begin with the subject matter of Supplementary Estimates B. I would like to welcome our witness, beginning with Minister Karina Gould, Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development, and we have in the room Jean-Francois Tremblay, Deputy Minister, Karen Robertson, Chief Financial Officer and Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Catherine Adams, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Tammy Bélanger, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Cliff Groen, Associate Deputy Minister, Karen Hall, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Mary Crescenzi, Assistant Deputy Minister, and Mary Ann Triggs, Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Canada. We will begin, and I will advise committee members that we had a 15-minute extension to this first hour because of a communication problem at the last meeting, and that 15 minutes will be added to the end of the first hour. So we'll begin with Minister Gould. Minister, you have up to 5 minutes to make an opening comments. Minister, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and committee. It's good to be back here. First of all, I want to apologize. I had every intention of being there in person. Unfortunately, I appear to have come down with a rather nasty bug, and I didn't think it would be kind to infect everyone with whatever it is that I have. So I will now speak to the Supplementary Estimates B for 2022-2023 that pertain to my portfolio as Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development Canada. ESDC is the largest federal service delivery organization in Canada. As demonstrated during the COVID-19 pandemic, the programs and services ESDC delivers are essential and make a difference in the lives of Canadians. The requests today aim to strengthen protections and continue building a stronger, more inclusive country. Le programme de la sécurité de l'AVS avait...
The program has given money to more than 7 million people last year. We expect more than 10 million clients by 2035. Each week, the minister receives around 62,000 new requests. The department is asking for more than $46 million in order to be able to serve Canadians adequately. This will allow us to reduce delays and improve service. In order to help seniors, we must be able to execute the program efficiently. We are asking for $13.5 million more for functioning budgets in order to improve the IT systems, among other things. This fund will allow us to create a contact center and have a more integrated workforce and provide a better service. The EDC tech services are not adequate.
Pour stabiliser.
We are asking for $16 million in order to stabilize the IT system.
Mention other initiatives for which we seek funding. The Black-led Philanthropic Endowment Fund is a Budget 2021 initiative under the Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. It seeks to create a sustainable source of funding for Black-led, Black-focused, and Black-serving nonprofit organizations and registered charities. Minister Qualtrough also spoke about this initiative the last time she was before this committee. With approximately $200 million, ESDC will support the implementation and provide one national recipient organization with the means to establish and operate the endowment fund beginning in the 2022-2023 fiscal year. This investment will work to reduce anti-Black racism and improve the social and economic outcomes in Black communities. Second, the Investment Readiness Program is a $50 million initiative to advance social innovation and social finance. Approximately $4.4 million will help social purpose organizations build their capacity and skills to find innovative ways that tackle social inequality, reduce poverty, and fight climate change. Troisièmement, je tiens aussi.
Thirdly, there are historical agreements on education and child learning. The federal government has made these agreements with various provinces. This has allowed daycare spaces and to create spaces in daycare centers, and has helped a lot. $4 million will be allocated to this project and other such projects. This will allow us to develop ways in order to help families and fill in the gaps and improve the knowledge necessary to put in a pan-Canadian system. These additional funds will help. In conclusion, I will speak about the Indigenous children. We know that the services for Indigenous children adapted to culture is, which is developed with Indigenous partners, gives Indigenous children a good start in life. $1.9 million is the amount we are asking for in order to make progress in these projects. This was elaborated with the government and First Nations, Inuit, and Métis organizations.
Is the need for public health measures at Service Canada centres. Since Service Canada centres reopened in 2020, in-person client interactions have doubled. ESDC is seeking $5.9 million to address public health requirements to protect both clients and staff. There is no doubt the financial resources requested will improve the standard of living and quality of life for all Canadians. Thank you, and I am now happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Minister. And we will now open the floor for questions, beginning with Madame Ferrari for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, can I ask you what your service standards are for funding programs for jobs, training, and social development projects within Employment and Social Development Canada, what that time frame is, how many weeks of response?
Ms. Ferrari, thank you for the question. I'll actually defer to my officials because it's actually Minister Qualtrough that's responsible for that area of the department.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. I'll tell you, it's 22 weeks. And the reason I ask you that, Minister, is because we know from your mandate letter, obviously, Community Services Recovery Fund is critical, right? We know these charities, not-for-profits, desperately rely on these, especially as they recover from the pandemic. So I wrote you a letter, handed it to you in the House on January 24th, 2022, asking for an update as many of these organizations had come to me because they hadn't heard. Based on your service standards, they should have heard back with the 22-week period being July 26. However, the fund wasn't announced until January 6th, 2023, so just over a month ago. And these not-for-profits and charities only have just over a month and a half or less than 2 months to apply. So 2 questions here, Minister. Why the delay? Why are you not able to maintain your own service standards? And why the delay?
So first of all, Ms. Ferry, thank you for the question, and thanks for raising this issue. Unfortunately, you're mixing up 2 different issues. The 22-week service standard is for grants and contributions programs that the department runs. The CSRF is actually a separate initiative. It's something that's unique. It's a one-time initiative that we are running. So the same kind of service standards don't apply because it's not the same kind of program. It's a $400 million fund, as you know, and it's being delivered by 3 national funders, so the Canadian Red Cross, the Community Foundations of Canada, and the United Way. We had to negotiate with these partners to make sure that we had a fund that was ready and available. Because it's something that is new and different, it took a little bit longer than had anticipated. However, what I've heard from the charitable sector is a real excitement about it and gratitude because it's a fund that is doing something.
Sorry, Minister. Thank you. I just only have so much time, so I do apologize for interrupting.
But if you'd like, I can explain the CSRF to you more.
No, that's okay. I think where the frustration lies from where I'm hearing back is that it's just, we've seen this repeatedly through your government. The time frame in which to apply and to deliver the money is so short and so rushed that things are being wasted. It's not done properly. And so, what are your service standards then, Minister? Like you're giving us an example, and you're trying to take us in another direction, but you're not sort of taking accountability for this major delay. Like, what are your service standards, and do you have any? And do you think less than 2 months is a fair amount of time for a group of people who, quite frankly, cannot survive without this money to apply?
Again, Ms. Ferry, you're mixing up 2 different issues here. So the service standards that you're talking about are for things like Canada Summer Jobs.
So what are your service standards is the question I asked, Minister. Minister, I asked your service standards for this then. I hear that you've cleared that up. So what is the service standard for this?
Right. So this is a different initiative. This is based on consultations with the charitable and not-for-profit sector. And as I was explaining to you before you asked the question again, this is something that the charitable sector has asked for. And what I've heard from them right across the country is they're very grateful for it because it's providing funding for core activities that aren't normally funded through other kinds of G's and C's initiatives. And this is something that is being delivered through our partners, so through the Red Cross, through the United Way, through the community foundations. And we actually launched the program in response to the asks of the community. And they asked us to do it following the Christmas period because that's one of the most busy periods of time for them.
Okay, I do appreciate that. And I think what we're having here is 2 different discussions. I think the question I'm trying to get from you is that these folks, maybe they're telling you different things than they're telling me, but they are sort of at your mercy, Minister, when you say, yep, we're going to get this $400 million rolled out to you, but they don't know when, they don't know where, they assume it's going to be in a timely fashion. And I think, honestly, there's an opportunity here for you to say, you know what, maybe we could have done this better and given more time. I guess that's what I'm asking. I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of these organizations. This money absolutely is important.
So Ms. Ferrari, I mean, all of that information is publicly available, and our 3 national funders over the past 2 months have been doing extensive online workshops and reaching out to their local communities to make sure that they have all of that information. And we actually listened to them in the sense they said, please don't launch this before or during the Christmas period because that's a very busy time for us. So we have been engaged with the charitable and not-for-profit sector the entire time, and we've listened to them and their needs. And so The fund will close on February 23rd. We've received thousands of applications already, which is really exciting because, as you say, this money is really important and needed for the charitable and not-for-profit sector. And then the 3 national funders are going through doing those assessments, and they'll be rolling out those funds in the coming months.
Merci. Madame Martinez-Farata maintenant.
Thank you very much for being with us, even with this cold that you're going through. In my riding, many families received and still receive the childcare benefit and what we wanted to do as a government was to reduce poverty. It's a priority of our government, who is trying to get children out of poverty. According to you, what are the initiatives, and with regards to the childcare benefit, how is it performing and how is it actually supporting families today? Of course, and thank you, Ms. Martinez-Farata, for the question. It was a pleasure to be with you a few weeks ago in Montreal. We were with an organization who is doing excellent and important work for children in vulnerable situations. With regards to the childcare benefit, the results are incredible. We know that 3.5 million families are receiving the Canada Child Benefit. This has helped a lot of children come out of poverty. In 2015, the rate of poverty among children was 16.3%, and now in 2019, in only 5 years, it was reduced to 9.4%. Of course, there is still progress to be made, but this is a very important way forward, and there is definitely a link to the Canada Child Benefit. Now, there was a question on daycares and the education of children. There are daycare centers across the country. There are innovation programs with regards to daycares for young children and education. How are these making the work progress, and how is the government's initiative working? What can you tell us about these programs and the innovation initiatives? I think I announced 16 innovation projects last year, and I had the opportunity to visit many of them. The GRIT program in Alberta is one that is most important to me. It is about inclusion, and they are a leader with regards to inclusion for children who are disabled and have developmental issues. They are doing a research study right now with what they have learned and they are looking to distribute that and disseminate that in the country. So there are organizations that are working with more vulnerable, more excluded groups amongst children, and they wish to share this data across the country. There are many initiatives that are very interesting. We did a study here at the committee on the initiative to support Black communities in Canada. When you spoke earlier about the fund for these organizations, these community organizations, you have an intermediary. This model seemed to be very appreciated. Can you tell us more about how this program is functioning right now and what the future of this program for the Black community is? Yes, and I would like to thank the committee for having done this study. We are this is Black History Month. And last week, I was able to speak to many of the beneficiaries of this support fund. There are organizations that are working very closely with the community. They are grassroots organizations, and they are in a very good position to make sure that the funds are properly spent and that they go where they are most needed. There is still 1 year to go with this support fund, and I know that there is a request which is still present, and I hope that this support fund will be continued, because I think that it is really changing things and having an impact. I have 30 seconds left. Is there anything you would like to add for the committee with regards while you're here? Perhaps just with the Economic Recovery Fund for community organizations. Organizations across the country have until February 21st to apply. I would like everybody to disseminate that information to their communities and community organizations.
Thank you.
Merci, Madame Martinez Ferrada.
Ms. Chabot, the floor. The interpreter had an issue with their microphone. Ms. Chabot, may I continue? With unemployment, I would like to read this letter in order to ask my question later. I am contacting you today to ask for your help. I am a mother who on 16th of December was let go. I immediately asked for unemployment because just a few days before Christmas, I could not afford to be jobless. I'm contacting you because my case has not been processed yet, and I've been told that since 2023, there's a 6-month wait list. How can we allow families to not have any income for 6 months? What will we do with our bills and all of the stress that we are accumulating? And it's been 16 weeks since, and I've been waiting, or 6 weeks rather, that I've been waiting, and that I'm told that I am not alone. I am a respectful person, but today I feel powerless, and I'm faced with a system that is repeating to me that there will only be more delays. And is there any way to accelerate the process to avoid other families finding themselves in the same vulnerable position? Do you think it's normal that workers who contribute to employment insurance must wait 6 months to have an answer and must deprive themselves of groceries and might have difficulty paying their rent? Do you find this normal? Yes or no? Well, first of all, Ms. Chabot, absolutely not. And I would like my office to share some statistics with you after this committee. There are not a lot of people who actually have to wait 6 months, and if that is the case, it's usually because there are other issues. But in this case, I hope that you can share it with my office, because since my office works with all of the MPs except for the passport, we will also work with bloc MPs on this issue, and we will make sure that everybody everybody receives their employment insurance. You and I are not on the same planet. You have seen that what is going on in the media, what has been said. We have the numbers, and we have asked more data and more access to information, and we still don't have any answers. There is a very big backlog for employment insurance. We're talking about 750,000 cases, and there are people who are waiting 90 days or more. You are going to talk to me about the standards, the service standards, but there are backlogs. There are humans behind your statistics. There are workers who are waiting. I am engaged with people, and I have worked with your office and the offices of all MPs, because we don't want anybody to be waiting for this delay. We know how important it is. But in Quebec, for January, the delay for people, 85% of them received their employment insurance within 28 days. It is important to know that we are doing a lot to improve the system. We have hired 330 people already just in Quebec. 220 are already working, because we don't want anybody to find themselves in this situation. Well, there are many people. It seems like the reality. It appears that our realities are different. Madam Minister, you are answering exactly what you said. You are responding exactly the same way you did a year ago, and nothing has changed. Thankfully, you have decided to change how things are being done in Quebec, because it was really untenable. You can't jump ship when that is the situation. All of these regions are telling you about our situation, and we can't understand how this is happening at Service Canada. The delays are far too long, and I don't think that there has been any real change. You will keep responding that 80%, 70% on the standard or the service standards within 90 days. You are not talking about the backlogs, and when someone asks for a review, it means that there is no agent that has taken on a specific case. This is the situation at Service Canada right now for delays, processing delays. What measures will you take to correct this in order to make sure that this mother who wrote to us and another father who wrote to us today, and it's been 2 months in his case, and that is just recently. Well, Ms. Chabot, I hope you will share these cases with my office, because if you don't share them with us, then we can't necessarily help them. So I invite you and all of the MPs to share these cases with us in order to remedy them. In the fall economic budget, we got a $4 billion budget over 4 years in order to ensure that there are enough agents to deal with these issues. As mentioned, we have already hired 330 people in the Quebec region and over 1,000 across Canada. They are being trained, but in Quebec, 220 people in the 2 previous weeks have already begun working. So we recognize that since last year, when you broached the topic, that we had to do better. I made the request for the money. I received it from the Minister of Finance. We hired people because we want exactly what you want. Madam Minister, you are really, I'm really surprised here, and really, it's your responsibility to fix this issue and to send us the uh, cases, not our responsibility.
Zerillo for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that the minister spoke about First Nation, Inuit, and Métis, and I just wanted to speak specifically about poverty eradication and also food security as it's laid out in the mandate letter. So I note that on the supplementary estimates, a third of the supplementary estimates are around there. That funding is focused on reconciliation. We know that racialized and Indigenous children are more likely to be living in poverty according to our most recent census data. And the Campaign 2000 report that was published this morning showed that Canada's child poverty rate dropped during the CERB payments, but we still know that kids are going hungry, and 1 in 8 children are still living in poverty in this country. So my question is around this food security issue, and I guess I wanted to ask specifically about the National School Nutritious Meal Program, where it's at, if you could give us an update and a timeline, and also how are we reaching the most vulnerable kids, including those in First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zerillo. So the National School Food Policy is something that is a shared mandate item between Minister Bibeau and myself. We launched consultations in November of 2022. They concluded publicly in December of 2022, although we're still receiving input from a number of community organizations as well as First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We're engaging directly with Indigenous partners on this. In fact, ITK has a very specific Inuit specific proposal when it comes to school food. And so we're also collaborating and engaging with Indigenous Services Canada. Right now, there's a patchwork across the country. Every province and territory, many Indigenous communities have some kind of school food program, but it's not even. And so we're trying to collect this information to find a way to level the playing field, raise all boats. We don't want to go to the lowest common denominator, to make sure that kids across this country have access to healthy and nutritious food. I think at this point, the latest statistics is about 1 in 5 kids in Canada goes to school hungry.
So, Minister, I understand that it's a shared mandate, and I think that's problematic. It's been shown to be problematic in past, where it's not sitting with one desk. When it's shared, there's some often lack of definition of responsibility. So I'm really interested in understanding, like, action on the ground. When can we expect that those numbers that you just quoted to me, and the sad reality that 1 in 5 kids are going hungry, and I agree with you fully that it's a piecemeal effort right now in community, and too many kids are going hungry. So when can we expect some real movement on instead of just potentially passing reports back and forth, when we can see some real movement on food for kids that are going to school hungry?
Well, Ms. Zerillo, I hope soon. We're collecting and analyzing all of the information from the consultations, and we'll be coming out with a What We Heard report, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Soon. And then we continue to do that engagement. As you know, and I'm sure others know, it's traditionally a responsibility of the provinces and territories. And so we're also engaging with our PT counterparts as well. There are some really amazing models in Canada. PEI is the only province that has a truly universal breakfast and lunch program, or universally accessible program, I should say. And so we're, collecting information with them. And, my hope is that we'll be able to engage in partnerships with provinces and territories, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit to deliver school food across the country, and to make sure that it's 0 out of 5 kids. It's no kids in Canada that go to school hungry.
And I agree fully, and I really hope that we can get there quickly. And, the NDP's been doing a lot of work around the price of food. It's become even more food insecure in this country based on the price of food. And, I just note that I just checked into the Dimensions of Poverty Hub again this week, just as I was preparing for this meeting. And we do see a decline in rates of poverty in this country, but we still know that there are so many people living in poverty. And I just note that at the same time that poverty rates are working towards being lowered, that the food insecurity is on the rise. And I just wonder Minister, how you can square that and how we can address that reality and how we can potentially modify also those measurement tools for poverty eradication, because food is a fundamental need.
I think that's a really good question. And as we discussed on Friday, it's one of the reasons why our Poverty Reduction Council and our Food Policy Council are getting together to talk about this, because I think for too long food has not been included when we talk about poverty, and this is something that we're working to address. And I think this is actually where having a shared mandate between the Minister of Agriculture and myself is a good thing, because I think working together we can help solve some of these issues, because I think on our own neither of us have the tools to do it. And so I'm really looking forward to the outcomes of that work, of that collaboration between those two councils.
And just very quickly, Minister, is there an opportunity to get some visibility into that new shared working roundtable? I'm really interested in getting some additional details about that.
Certainly, we can follow up with you following the committee.
Good. Thank you. Now we'll go to Madame Falk for 5 minutes. Madame Falk.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, in your exchange with Madame Chabot, you had said for each of us to bring our cases that we have to your office. Will you please table with this committee the preferred contact in your office that we can do that?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. In your mandate letter, you were tasked with implementing modern, resilient, secure, and reliable services for Canadians, and ensuring that those services and benefits reach all Canadians, regardless of where they live. What specifically is being done within Service Canada to better serve rural Canadians?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And it's a really important one. I've had the opportunity in the past year to visit over 30 different Service Canada sites across this country. And one of the things that became very clear during the crisis of passports was that for rural Canadians in particular, often doing a mail-in application was the only opportunity, lest they have to travel several hours to get to a passport office. And so one of the things that we did was we opened passport services in 13 additional offices across the country. We're on track to open another passport services in an additional 25 across the country to make it more accessible for Canadians.
I have very limited time.
Sure.
I represent a rural riding in Saskatchewan, as I'm sure you know. My office is receiving an increasing number of phone calls with respect to limited services that are available to them through Service Canada. So I've had complaints that there is only a single person working at our local office, that walk-ins who drove very far distances to get there are being turned away because of that limitation. I've also had a complaint from a constituent who got turned away from receiving service for not being masked, like today, despite having a medical exemption. So when can Canadians living in rural Canada expect to see the service delivery standard of Service Canada, if not improved, at least returned to pre-pandemic service standard?
Thanks, Ms. Falk, and I'm sorry to hear about those instances. I'll certainly follow up with the regional ADM responsible to make sure that we can address those challenges, because no matter where Canadians are across this country, they should be able to get good, accessible services, and that's something that's really important for me, but also for Service Canada in general. And so I'll be happy to follow up on those instances.
So I guess with that, why is there a mask mandate appropriate for Service Canada, but not necessary in other federal government settings?
Well, Service Canada follows the public health advice of the Public Health Agency of Canada. My understanding is that masks now are encouraged, but they are not required. And so we will follow up with that specific Service Canada.
So that's been a policy change?
That's been a very recent policy change.
When did that change?
I will have to defer to Cliff on that for the specific date, but that has been a very recent change. Cliff?
It was announced by the Treasury Board on Friday.
When will the website reflect that?
We need to discuss with each of the group, health and security groups, for the implementation, but that should be in the next days and weeks.
Have all the staff that are in a customer-facing role returned to work?
Yes. Since almost a year ago.
And when will walk-in services resume in rural Canada?
There should be walk-in services everywhere across the country. And that would have been the case for over a year.
Okay, well, that might not be happening in every Service Canada, since that is some of the complaints that we're getting. Like I said, Service Canada, constituents that have to drive long distances and then being turned away. I just want to quickly touch on your passport comments. My office assisted constituents with their passport applications during your government's backlog. And it was very clear to me, actually, that rural Canadians were given very little or no consideration in the solutions implemented to speed it up. Constituents were expected to drive long hours, pick up their passports in Saskatoon, in our case, and often given a very narrow timeline to pick this up before they were set to travel. There was no consideration for the added cost of the travel or for some of the unfeasibility of that expectation, whether that be access to transportation, time off work, or for distance between Saskatoon and their travel departure point. So when considering solutions to the record passport backlogs in your department, did you apply a rural lens to this program?
Ms. Falk, I think that's one of the key lessons learned actually out of this crisis.
Well, it seems to be consistent with your government. You don't seem to put a rural lens on anything.
Well, that's why, so we opened passport services in an additional 13 locations across the country, and we're going to be opening that in another 25 locations over the course of the next year to make sure that those services are available closer to where people live, including rural Canadians. And that's been something that I've asked the department.
A very big country, right? And there's a lot of rural aspects to Canada. That doesn't help my constituents, and it wouldn't also help the ridings that are to the north or to the south of me either.
That's exactly why we're providing more services in more locations across the country, because one of the things that I recognized and feel very strongly about is that we weren't adequately serving rural Canadians, and so we're helping to change that. There will be about 38, when all told, put in new locations across the country that will help serve Canadians that live in more rural areas. So I really appreciate you raising that, because I think it's a really important point.
Thank you. Thank you, Madame Falk. Mr. Van Bynen, for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here, Minister. In my province of Ontario, I've spoken to parents who are already experiencing fee reductions as a result of the government building out its national early learning and childcare system. And we know that one of the major challenges remaining is the creation of new spaces and how critical this is to ensuring that the system is there for all the parents that need care for their children. Could you please update us on how this is going in my province and across the country in terms of space creation, and what are you doing to make sure that this will be a success?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Van Bynen, for the question. And you're absolutely right. Lowering fees is extraordinarily important. It's making a huge difference in the lives of Canadian families right across this country. The stories that I'm getting from people are just remarkable in terms of how this is really changing the lives of them and their families. But we recognize that reducing fees is not sufficient in and of itself. We have to grow the system, and that's why we committed to increasing the number of spaces by 250,000 over the next 4 years. Across Canada so far, we have, in partnership with provinces and territories, been able to increase the number of spaces by just over 50,000 in the last year and a half. And in Ontario, that's about 33,000 additional spaces. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you. We all saw in our communities how difficult the pandemic was on community service organizations and the not-for-profits, both in terms of placing additional demands on their operations and the challenges that they were facing in supporting the pandemic recovery, and many of them relied on donations that simply weren't materializing. Could you please share how you see them coping with these additional demands and the role that that the program, like the Community Service Recovery Fund, can play in supporting their networks?
Certainly. So, I mean,
Certainement. Alors, comme vous l'avez indiqué, je veux m'assurer que chacun ici entend parler de l'impact énorme que la pandémie a eu sur les organisations communautaires. À l'époque, nous leur avons demandé de faire davantage. Et là où les communautés s'appuyaient.
Excuse me, Madame,
I'm hearing French.
Ms. Falk, you have your hand up. Is it the translation I was getting
And I'm hearing
feedback from?
French, and I'm on the English
Yes.
channel.
Sorry about that.
We'll hold for a moment. It has been corrected. Minister, you have the floor.
okay. So, they were relied on at a point in time where they had even fewer resources. And so my predecessor, Minister Hussein, in this role, did some very extensive consultations and engagement with the charitable sector following the initiative of the Emergency Community Services Fund to see what was next. And what we heard loud and clear from them was that they needed support to help recover from the pandemic, particularly on budget items that don't normally get supported through grants and through project funding. And so whether that's with regards to HR, whether it's with regards to IT or mental health supports for their staff, they were asking for a fund that would help them really, get their organizations back on track and really help them be transformative for the 21st century. And that's what the CSRF is all about. And so I think there's a huge opportunity here for the charitable and not-for-profit sector to, really help them move into the 21st century in a more sustainable way.
Thank you, Minister. Now, I know that the budget provides for a significant investment in benefits deliberate modernization. Can you tell me what safeguards are in place to avoid pitfalls that are characterized with large IT projects, similar to that what's experienced with the Phoenix Pay system? What type of defense mechanisms do you have in place to avoid significant breakdowns?
Certainly. So the Benefits Delivery Modernization Initiative is a really important one. Currently, our old age security platform is over 60 years old. And so it's really in need of an upgrade. And BDM is looking to have a more modern way to deliver, the over $100 billion of benefits that we deliver to Canadians every single year. And the government has learned a lot of lessons from previous IT procurements. And I think the top one being that you need to run both systems in parallel. You can't turn off turn one off until you're very confident that the other one is functioning. There are many different initiatives that are in place to ensure that that the government is doing things in the right way. And this is a very large IT procurement, and it's a very large IT project that is vitally important for Canadians.
Thank you.
Madam Minister, Madame Chabot pour 2 minutes et demie.
Ms. Chabot for 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much. Madam Minister, what I found interesting in our previous exchange is that you acknowledge that it makes absolutely no sense that people might wait 6 months to get their employment insurance benefits. But what I find worrisome is that you are denying the problem. You are denying that this is a phenomenon that exists within the system, or the current system at Service Canada, and you just said, just send us over the requests. That's not the issue, Madam Minister, right now. And of course, I would send you, if I could, the press review for the past 6 months. But there are unacceptable delays There are nearly 1,000 cases that, or rather, hundreds of. There will be a backlog of 3 years with the amount right now. Usually there's a backlog of 200,000 cases, but there's far more than that right now. There are a few billion that are going to be allocated to fix this problem, but we still have to vote on that budget. So how will you manage to decrease delays for all workers to a reasonable amount of time? I never said that there was no problem, with all due respect. What I said was that we needed to clarify the numbers. What you said, I believe, was more than what it really is. What I always have said is that it is unacceptable for anybody to wait 6 months. That was clear. I made a budgetary request. It is in the budget. We don't need to wait for it to be accepted because that is the fall economic update. It is the equivalent of the budget. It is specifically done in order to improve the situation. The backlog that you speak of, it's not the people that are waiting for a benefit. The majority have received a benefit, but they have to have something change in their system or for their specific case. For some, it is a payment more, a payment less, but for the most part, these are personal informations that we need to update. It is not necessarily a person who is waiting for a benefit, because the main goal of Service Canada is to ensure that people receive their benefits as quickly as possible. But for me, as for you, the most important thing is to fix the system. And what will you do, Madam Minister? Ms. Chabot, that was my question. As I've already said, Madam Minister.
Madame Zerillo for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to go back to eradication of poverty and the commitments, Canada's commitments to the SDG 2030 agenda. And this, as you know, the NDP are in favor of a guaranteed livable basic income. And this call was certainly a test case when CERB came to be. And I was just reading today the annual BC Child Poverty Report Card from First Call Child and Youth Advocacy Society, and they mentioned that all provinces and territories saw large decreases in child poverty rates between 2019 and 2020 because of pandemic benefits. And it goes on to say that without continuing investments in children and families, rates will likely rise again. So my question to you, Minister, is what lessons will this Liberal government take away to maintain and to build on the gains in poverty reduction throughout the pandemic to ensure that 500,000 children at least do not fall back into poverty?
Thank you, Ms. Cirillo. I share your passion for reducing poverty amongst children in Canada. It's one of the reasons why I'm so proud of our government for bringing forward the Canada Child Benefit, because it has had such a dramatic impact on reducing child poverty rates in this country. I'm also really proud about the $30 billion that we've invested into early learning and childcare, because we know that for so many women, and I've heard from so many of them across this country, that when childcare fees were as expensive as they were just a year ago, it meant that so many of them couldn't enter into the workforce. And I've heard from women in every province in this territory who have said because of the childcare fee reductions, they can go back into the workforce for the first time and earn a living and support their families in a way that just wasn't possible before. So I think that's a really exciting initiative. And then, of course, there's lots of lessons, I think, to be drawn upon from the pandemic in terms of how we can have a more fair and more equitable society. And I think those are being analyzed right now.
And Minister, you mentioned the Canada Child Benefit, and you know that my colleague out of Winnipeg Centre, Leah Gazan, she's been really fighting hard against the clawbacks to the Canada Child Benefit. So I wonder if you could update on whether the government is actively ensuring that those families do not lose any of their very important income supports.
So it's certainly something that has been drawn to my attention. Of course, the decision on this rests with the Canada Revenue Agency and with Finance Canada. As you know, CCB is income tested, and so as someone's income increases, the amount of CCB that they're allocated decreases. This is a really important aspect of the program. However, I understand that this does have an impact on families for whom they only saw a temporary increase to their income, and it's something that we continue to explore.
We'll now conclude the first hour with Madame Ferrari for 5 minutes, and then we'll do the 15-minute add-on. Madame Ferrari for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Minister. I'd like to talk about your mandate letter in the part where it says, ensure the voices and needs of children are represented in our government's agenda as we work to make Canada the best place to grow up, ensure mental health supports are accessible to children and youth as they recover from the impact of the pandemic. The Raising Canada report from 2022, Children First Canada, sheds light on the reality that 1/3 of kids in Canada do not enjoy a safe and healthy childhood. Canada ranks 30th out of 38 affluent nations for protecting the well-being of children, according to UNICEF, which is a significant drop from 12th place in 2007. As a country, we've been going in the wrong direction for far too long. And Minister, I'm curious, I know you love to talk about childcare, but that is for up to age 6. So I'm curious, what policies have your ministry has your ministry updated to support the mental health of children over the age of 6?
Thank you very much for the question, Ms. Ferrari. And I think that one of the things that we all saw throughout the course of the COVID-19 pandemic was the significant impact that it had on the mental health, particularly of our children and youth. We are working with Minister Bennett, the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, as well as Minister Ian, the Minister of Youth, on these issues in particular. And I know Minister Bennett has recently announced funding particularly on children's mental health. And so we support her in that work. In terms of including children's voices, we are engaging in a children's consultation, particularly with regards to school food, but also to make sure that their voices are part of those any policy that we are developing, because it's one thing, I think, for us as adults to say this is what you need, but it's more important to make sure that we're listening to children and making sure that their needs are included.
Thank you for that. So I guess I'm curious, you know, one of the things we've been really pushing for, and a lot of advocates have been pushing for, is the promised $4.5 billion mental health transfer. And you've said that you're working alongside Minister Bennett, which is great. So where do you stand as a minister in ensuring that that money is delivered when we have children at the crisis that we know that they're in terms of mental health? Why hasn't that money been transferred? And do you have any influence over ensuring that it does get there?
Thank you for the question. So as I'm sure you saw last week, the Prime Minister met with all of the premiers on the Canada Health Transfer, and within that, one of the areas is with regards to mental health, and of course with regards to pediatric care as well. $2 billion specifically to go to pediatric hospitals to address the challenges in pediatric care, and then of course working with the provinces and territories to ensure that mental health supports, particularly for children and youth, are included. And so Minister Bennett
Sorry, Minister, I only have so much time, so I know it always seems like we're interrupting here, but we only have so much time. But none of that announcement included mental health. There was actually zero mention of mental health.
That's not true. Mental health was included in
Can you table that to the committee to show or give proof of that?
I think you can read it in the news release, but we can certainly share that with you. But Minister Bennett is leading on that, obviously, as a Health Canada minister, but we're supporting her in that work.
I'd like to see more. I guess I would put that on the record for sure, and more push for that promised $4.5 billion, because it just isn't adding up. And I know you're a mom. I know you know this. So I think you must have the idea of how serious this is. The Parliamentary Budget Officer last week had quite a scathing review. He appeared at a Senate committee and had quite a few things to say about your leadership and the department that you're responsible for. And we've heard a lot about that today in this committee. And the Canadian Federation of Independent Business has awarded its 2023 Paperweight Award for worst red tape to service Canada's passport mess. He said, the Parliamentary Budget Officer said things such as, I think if you ask anybody who recently applied for a passport, OAS, and the list goes on, they're probably very well aware that the level of service Canadians are getting is not what one would expect from a world-class public service. Can you please explain how this is filling your mandate letter obligation to, quote, development and implementation of modern, resilient, secure, and reliable services and benefit delivery systems for Canadians?
Well, at no point will I pretend that we didn't go through a very big challenge when it comes to passport delivery over the last spring and summer. However, I will say that Service Canada and myself worked extremely hard over the course of that time to get the passport system back on track, and it is now. So we're delivering passports 97% of the time on time, and for those that aren't, it's because there are additional circumstances. And when it comes to EI and OAS, we're delivering those at the service standards as well. We can always do better, which is why I asked for and received $1.4 billion in the course of the fall economic statement to make sure that we keep those services on track and we improve those services to Canadians, because this is critical for delivering entitlements and benefits to Canadians. So I can say that everybody is hard at work to make sure that the impacts of the pandemic and the challenges that we faced last spring and summer don't occur again.
The first hour. We will now revert to the service standards for passports with Minister Gould as well for 15 minutes, beginning with Madame Chabot pour 2 minutes et demi. Madame.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Chair, rather, and thank you for allowing us to take the time to continue our work. Madam Minister, I mentioned this earlier. What stuns me is, I don't know, this very zen attitude towards what has happened. I don't know how you will translate the zen part of things, but with regards to passports, your remarks last time, you said when I have been a witness here beforehand, I told you that we had a plan. What everybody was understood was that there was no plan. It was managed day to day. You were overwhelmed. Yes, now the situation has calmed down. But when the crisis happened, and that was predictable, that was not the case at all. It was complete improvisation. When I talk about you being responsible for Service Canada, this is another situation where things went totally awry, and this very much breaks citizens' trust towards a service that they need and should be able to rely on. The idea of this motion was for us to make sure that we can do some passing over some accountability, get some accountability. And of course, I am asking you, Madam Minister, I heard you on 98.5 when Mr. Lagacé asked you what grade would you give yourself for the management of this passport crisis. Once again, with all due respect, there was a plan and we did implement the plan. We are now in a situation where there are virtually no passports in the backlog. During the visit to this community last May, that is what we said. We did accelerate things and we sped things up. Of course, there were things that were unpredictable. We did not expect to have 750 people outside a Service Canada office just on the day on Saint Jean-Baptiste Day, but we have had the opportunity to work together with MPs in the Bloc Québécois to make sure that your constituents get their passports on time. It is a pleasure for me to work with my colleagues because we like to resolve these kinds of issues. I do want to help people. So thank you very much, Ms. Chabot.
Rello for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to take this time for a moment to just get some clarity on our agenda going forward. Bill C-35 is going to be coming to this committee. And I just wanted to get, some clarity on our first meetings back that are potentially addressing C-35 and what the plan is.
On what particular item, Madame Zarrillo?
C-35, the bill. C-35.
Yes, but the agenda, we begin with a technical briefing and with the minister on the first day. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I'm looking on the website. I don't see anything. It's my understanding that we will have a technical staff briefing potentially on the first day back. But the minister is here, and I think there's an opportunity to invite the minister as well, potentially later in the week, at the very beginning.
On that, I'm in the hands of the committee, Madam Clerk. She will be invited. She hasn't been invited yet, but it's the intention to invite the minister.
Okay. So although it's not necessarily on the website, I'm anticipating that we will have a technical staff briefing, and then I would like to take this opportunity to be able to invite the minister to come maybe later in the week, perhaps March 10th, to talk C-35.
Martinez Ferreira, we're a bit off, but it's your time, Madame Zarrillo, which is running out.
C'est effectivement pas clair non plus. Est-ce que le briefing...
It's not quite clear if the technical briefing is on March 7th, and will the minister be invited on March 10th? Is that correct? I just want some clarification. It's not clear to me.
Okay, what the committee, there was a discussion on the first day being the 7th, because there was some discussion back and forth on the date. We settled on starting on the 7th with a technical briefing. My information, it's for the first hour, and then the minister will be invited for the second hour. But it's the committee that determines its agenda, its scheduling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was my understanding that it was a 2-hour technical briefing, and I would like to take the opportunity to invite the minister today. So I could put a motion on the floor, or we could just have a general unanimous consent. You let me know how you'd like that to proceed.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we had decided what our schedule was, and we're questioning the minister on passports right now, and the member's time is up. So I'd like to move on, please. Thank you.
Ms. Gray, yes, we'll have to. We can raise that at the end of the meeting. But Madame Zarrillo, I have to move to Ms. Gray as per the schedule and the agreement of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here today.
J'ai un point d'ordre.
Minister, do you know? Yes. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. I have a point of order. Est-ce que si Madame Durand a pris la parole, est-ce que...
If what I've understood is that she presented a motion. If she presents a motion, then the motion takes precedence over the discussion.
Yes, you are correct. The motion is entertained at any time, but I did not get a motion from Madame Zarrillo.
She did mention that she wanted to move a motion.
Okay. If Madame Zarrillo, you on a point of order, you want to
point of order, Mr. Chair?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then if someone wishes to move a motion, then it should be during their time. There was no motion that was moved during the member's time. And so I respectfully ask that that time was up and we've moved on. Thank you.
And sorry, Mr. Speaker, and maybe I was being too collaborative in my approach to ask for permission, and so I would ask the member to just give me the opportunity. I have a very quick motion to read, and the next time I won't ask for collaboration up front. I'll just go ahead with my motion.
Do you agree for Madame Zarrillo to move her motion? We do not have unanimous consent, Madame Zarrillo, so, but you at your next speaking opportunity you can. Madame Gray for 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting my time now. Thank you, Minister, for being here. Minister, do you know what the closest urgent passport pickup location is for people who live in southern British Columbia, specifically the Okanagan region?
For urgent passport pickup, I
Yes.
guess it's somewhere in Vancouver or Calgary.
You're correct. It would either be Calgary or Surrey, British Columbia. Do you know how long the drive is from Kelowna Lake Country to Surrey, British Columbia in good weather conditions?
10 hours?
The amount of time in good weather conditions is 5 hours. So I'd like to read you some media quotes. Quote, the Coquihalla Highway in the British Columbia interior is closed in both directions between Hope and Merritt due to heavy snowfall. Here's another quote. These are severe weather conditions that are pretty unpredictable, unquote. Minister, I could read hundreds just like this, just even over the past few years. So yes or no, would you recommend someone venture on this road to pick up a passport?
No, for safety reasons, but I can take this information back with me, Ms. Gray, and we can see what we can do to make sure that it's more accessible for folks in Kelowna, because that's something that's really important for me right across the country.
Thank you, Minister. Just to add on to this, have you heard of the documentary TV series Highway Through Hell?
I actually have not.
Okay. Well, it shows real-life heavy vehicle rescue and tow truck company hardships in one of Canada's harshest regions for winter driving, including the high Summit Coquihalla Highway. And so, Minister, what's happening right now is you're asking about 700,000 people who live in the southern interior, including the 350,000 from the Okanagan, to drive this dangerous winter highway to pick up a passport.
Well, we're not asking them to do that, actually. There's a passport office in Kelowna. But I do take your point, Ms. Gray, and I will take it back, and I would be happy to look into this for you.
Thank you, Minister. So just to tag on to that, I've actually been asking you about this for quite some time. So in May of 2022, I wrote you regarding expanding passport service at the Kelowna Passport Office to provide urgent pickup, where I highlighted how municipalities and regions with smaller populations have urgent pickup. I also noted economic reasons and driving safety reasons. In July of 2022, I wrote you a follow-up email. And then in August of 2022, I wrote you for a third time, this time joined by community leaders in the British Columbia Southern Interior from 37 local municipal governments and business and tourism groups. So you have not responded to any of this communication. Why have you not responded?
Well, I can assure you, Ms. Gray, that we have taken it all under advisement. And one of the things that I can also clarify for you is that when we're looking at how passport services are distributed across the country, BC is one of those areas that is underserved. And so we're taking that into account as we look to expand those additional 25 offices across the country.
Well, Minister, I can appreciate that, but none of this communication has even received so much as a response from yourself or from your office. So can you table for this committee what the metrics are to determine if a passport office should be upgraded to urgent service for passports?
Yeah, so we are looking into this. I can say that one of the first things that I asked for when I became a minister was how we determine where passport offices are located, and there had been a really long time since we had expanded those services. So I'm pleased to say that we have 13 additional Service Canada offices now across
thank you, Minister.
the country.
Those upgrades weren't for urgent?
Yeah,
thank you, Minister.
Yeah, but they were for 10-day service, which was still something that wasn't available to those folks.
But the community that I'm mentioning, this is my time, Minister. Yeah. Thank you. This is my time. So what I'm asking is for you to table to the committee what the metrics are in order to justify increasing to an urgent passport office.
Ms.
Do
Gray,
you
we would
have
be
metrics? Do you have
Ms.
metrics?
Gray, we would be happy to do that. And the other thing that I can say is that until recently, we are actually, for a little while longer, we're limited by that because of the current printers that we have. But we are working to upgrade that to make sure that we can provide that urgent service to folks right across this country.
Minister,
I can assure you that I'm going to take your community into consideration.
Thank you. So based on what I've mentioned to you today and based on all the information that I've provided to you today, will you commit to upgrading Kelowna's passport office to provide urgent pickup service?
Again, Ms. Gray, we'll have to get back to you, but what I can say is that we are looking at across the network right now where we need to have urgent service, where we need to have additional 10-day service.
I'll be following up with
And
you
I can
again. Thank you,
and I
Minister.
can
My
assure
time
you
is
that
up.
we'll
Thank
take
you.
this into consideration. Thank you, Ms. Gray.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Gould. We'll now go for the final 5 minutes to the government, Mr. Van Bynen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister Gould, I'm one of the individuals that took early advantage of the 10-year renewal for passports, and I'm eager to see where we're going to be going with that. But before we do that, I'd like to share my time with Ms. Arillo so that we can clarify the motion that she had been contemplating earlier. So if you could give me a brief summary of what advice you would have for Canadians who might be applying for renewal as part of the 10-year cohort, and do you feel you're ready to handle the volume?
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's really important because there was some confusion, I think particularly from the Conservatives about when the 10-year renewal was happening. They seem to indicate that it was last year, but that's actually not the case because the first 10-year passports were issued in 2013. So there was nothing to do with the 10-year renewal last year, despite what the Conservatives were saying. And so this July is the first time that there will be renewals for the 10-year passports. Because of the doubling of the workforce, because of the changes in the passport system, because of the additional offices that are providing services, we feel very confident at Service Canada that we can manage this volume. And we've also have a simplified renewal process as well for anyone who had a passport issued in the last 15 years. So I think Canadians can have quite a bit of confidence when it comes to renewing their passport, whether it was part of that first 10-year cohort or at any other time.
Mm-hmm. We certainly faced an unprecedented pandemic, and that's led to a number of changes that you're implementing. Are there any specific changes that you feel will have a significant impact in that service delivery?
Certainly. So, there were a lot of changes. First of all, implementing a triage system at passport offices and improving line management was something that was really important, particularly at the height of the crisis, but something that continues in busy offices to this day, as well as some internal processes to make sure that things are more efficient and ensuring that we have adequate staff really is the number one issue. The passport system did not have the capacity, a year ago to handle the volume that it saw between February, starting in February, really, of 2022. So these are important changes, and we've also enabled the network to speak more to each other in a way that it didn't before.
Thank you. I think I've run out of my time that I'll share with Ms. Arillo.
And 15 seconds to share.
Okay, I really appreciate it because it wasn't clear in the information. It says that we are going to commence the study on March 7th, but it doesn't have any timing. So here's my motion. I'd like to move a motion, Mr. Chair, that the committee amend its study on Bill C-35, an act respecting early learning and childcare in Canada, by amending the motion adopted on Friday, February 3rd, 2023, to hold a 2-hour technical briefing on Tuesday, March 7th with the relevant department officials, and that the committee invite the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, accompanied by officials, to appear for 1 hour on Friday, March 10th, 2023, and for witnesses from the list provided by committee members to appear during the following hour. And this just adds clarity, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Indeed, I do think that this requires some clarification, and thank you for having presented a motion to my colleague. We have these bilateral agreements made with other provinces and all of the jurisdictions that we have to study and verify. I do agree that we need 2 hours of technical briefing on Monday the 7th, and we can invite the minister on Friday the 7th, the 10th rather. I will ask that we move to vote on the motion, since another minister will be appearing shortly.
Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have that motion in writing?
It's been circulated shortly.
Oh, it has. Did we get it emailed?
Miss,
It's coming? Okay.
it's coming. Ms. Falk,
So
you.
just to clarify, so that would that cut into witness testimony on the 10th then? We were really clear that we wanted to have a certain number of witness testimonies, so I'm unclear until I have it in front of us, what's being asked.
My understanding is the clarification that on the first meeting, the full meeting be devoted to technical briefing. I have Ms. Falk. Ms. Falk, you had your hand up? No? Madame Chabot?
I think that the motion that we had adopted is now disrupted. I think in a committee, 2 hours of technical briefing is a bit exaggerated. This motion will push back the presence of the minister. That's what I understand. I do think that that's a little bit abusive to have 2 hours of technical briefings. We could do that outside this committee room.
Ms. Gray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I respectfully agree with Ms. Chabot. We can any member can request technical briefings from staff. I know I just did it myself for something else. So if any members want to get more in detail with technical briefing, they can do that themselves. So that's always an option to members of Parliament.
Okay, but there is a motion to the floor. I'm going to put it to a vote unless there's any other discussion. Madam Clerk will call a vote on the motion of Madame Chabot, and the members know it. Madam Clerk? Sorry, Zerillo. The motion of Madame Zerillo. Okay, Madam Clerk, the motion is to have the first day with 2-hour technical briefing. Call a vote.
And the vote is on the motion of Ms. Zerillo. Mr. Long.
Support.
Madame Martinez-Ferreira.
Oui.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Coteau.
In favor.
Mr. Van Bynen.
In favor.
Ms. Gray.
No.
Mr. Aitchison.
No.
Ms. Falk.
No.
Ms. Ferreri.
No.
Madame Chabot.
No.
Ms. Zerillo. That's 6 yeas, 6 pour, 5 nays, 5 contre.
Motion is carried. With that, it concludes the 15-minute round, and we'll now suspend for a moment while we transition to the new. I want to thank the witness departmental staff for appearing. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Minister Gould, for your presence to conclude the 15 minutes from the other day. Thank you so much. We will now suspend while we transition. Call to order the second hour of committee meeting number 55, and welcome back. The committee will resume its study of the subject matter of Supplementary Estimates B 2022-2023, Vote 1B under Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Votes 1B and 5B under the Department of Employment and Social Development. And I would like to make a few comments to the adjoining witnesses who are all in this round appearing in the room in person. So please direct your questions, your comments through me as chair, and I will recognize you which time you would have the floor. So as well, everyone has the option of speaking in the official language of their choice. If there is a disruption in translation service, please get my attention. We'll suspend while it is clarified. So I would like to begin by welcoming Honorable Ahmed Hussein, the Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion, Romy Bowers, President and Chief Executive Officer of CMHC, Michelle Tremblay, Chief Executive Financial Officer, Senior Vice President of Corporate Services. From the Department of Employment and Social Development, Nissa Toumont, Assistant Deputy Minister, Programs Operation Branch. From the Office of Infrastructure Canada, Janet Golding, Assistant Deputy Minister, Community Policy and Programs. We'll begin, Minister, with 5-minute opening statement from yourself. Mr. Minister, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you.
Outline the plans of our government for housing, supported by the supplementary estimates, be referred to this committee. We know that far too many people in Canada struggle to find a home that is affordable and that meets their needs. And quite simply, it is a struggle that should not be there. Every time someone is forced to choose between paying for food or paying for shelter, or forced to live in unlivable conditions, we all suffer. It is everyone's problem, because everyone benefits from a housing system that is fair and leaves no one behind. When we provide someone with a suitable home, they succeed, and when they succeed, we all succeed. It is our government's view that every dollar we spend on housing is an investment. It's an investment in people and in communities, and it's an investment in our common prosperity. That is why we've prioritized housing since the beginning of our mandate in 2015, and why we've made it a cornerstone of our most recent budget. The plans laid out in Budget 2022 drive the supplementary estimates that we've provided here today. The estimates contain a number of funding reprofiles to support key planks in our housing plan. One of the major focuses of our housing plan is to support the most vulnerable. And this is why we introduced the Rapid Housing Initiative. And because of the success of the first and second round, we introduced in Budget 2022 the third round of the Rapid Housing Initiative to build an additional 4,500 units on top of creating over 10,000 units of deeply affordable housing. The estimates also include $15 million reprofiled from future years to support the First-Time Homebuyer Incentive, a really key program for first-time homebuyers to access the dream of home ownership. Additional items include the reprofiling of $21 million for the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, which is our flagship program that really helps build deeply affordable housing across the country in partnership with municipalities and nonprofits. And we're also reprofiling $38 million to support the delivery of the Federal Lands Initiative, which enables surplus federal lands and properties to become available to nonprofit organizations to build affordable housing. These are just, of course, just a few examples. Le budget des dépenses comprend également de nouveaux fonds pour.
This includes new funds for the budget, especially for the Home Buyers Fund, or the Affordable Housing Innovation Fund, and a third round of the Highly Effective Rapid Housing Initiative. These requests are all in service of our plan to increase housing supply and ensure everyone in Canada has a place to call home.
Rights-based approach to housing, and makes it clear that we believe that the federal government has a strong role to play in this sector. Indeed, it was our government that appointed the National Housing Council and the first ever National Housing Advocate to advise the federal government as we strive to ensure that all Canadians have the right to a safe and affordable place to call home. It prioritizes collaboration across the housing system, and the reality is that we cannot do this alone. We need collaboration from other orders of government, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. As always, I appreciate this committee's attention to issues on housing. It is truly one of the biggest challenges we must all work together to tackle. And I'm happy to come back to this committee and answer any questions that committee members may have. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Minister.
For 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Minister, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in person, too. I appreciate that very much. I think the committee does, too, to see you in person. Minister, would you agree that Canada is facing a housing crisis right now? Would you characterize it as a crisis?
I think we are, as a country, experiencing challenges with respect to everyone having access to a safe and affordable place to call home, and it is what motivates, I think, all of us to really pay attention to these issues and make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help Canadians access the housing that not only is affordable but actually meets their needs.
But you wouldn't call it a crisis?
I would say that it's a challenge faced by many Canadians, and we have to work together to make sure we address those challenges.
But you wouldn't call it a crisis?
I think I've answered the question, Mr. Chair.
Minister, how many homes does the CMHC say we need by 2030, not just to meet targets, but to actually meet some affordability targets? You know?
I would say 3.5 million, but I'll turn to
3.5 million more than the 2.3 we're probably on target to build just as of right.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you know that works out to just over one home completed a minute for the next 7 years?
I will take your word for it, but what I can say is the housing supply issue
that's some quick math, and I didn't do it very quickly myself. Parker did it for me, but that's a lot of homes, and we have a crisis, not just in housing, but of course in labor. There's not enough people to build these homes. We're struggling there. We have a situation where the affordability situation in this country is only getting worse. In fact, RBC has just reported in their most recent report that it has never been so unaffordable to buy a home in this country. And yet, when this government came into office, they came up with this national housing strategy, Minister. And you weren't the minister at the time, but I'm sure you remember. It was great fanfare. This was a generational change in housing. It was going to be, as the first ever. You just described it as the first ever truly national housing strategy. And yet, the situation today is worse than it's ever been. The number of homeless in Toronto has gone up dramatically. The number of homeless people who have died in Toronto doubled over year. The number of young people who have given up the hope of ever even owning a home is 9 out of 10 right now in this country. And, the CMHC has received all kinds of funds for this various different programs that they deliver in the National Housing Strategy. We found out from the Parliamentary Budget Officer, though, that 3 or 4 of those programs, they hadn't even spent half of their allocated funding over the first 3 years of the program. Now, of course, we're looking for more money for a new program, and yet the situation isn't improving. And so I'm wondering how you can't agree that we're in a crisis in this country. The number of people who are homeless is going up. The tent cities are growing. The number of people who have, given up on the dream of owning a home, that continues to go up. We're desperately short of purpose-built rentals in this country. And then, of course, we also heard from the Auditor General that the CMHC and Infrastructure Canada and their various different housing programs weren't exactly sure if their programs were even working. In fact, when we asked the Auditor General about that, is there someone that is going to be coordinating this effort? She reported back to us that she was actually kind of disappointed to report that the response back was that by the end of this year there would be a champion who would actually coordinate the efforts of these agencies. So your government's committed $70 billion. We're just about to give you a bunch more. The situation's worse than it's ever been. The number of people dying in homeless shelters is growing. How can you not see that as a crisis?
So there's a lot to unpack there, Mr. Chair, but I'll make an effort to at least in the time remaining to address some of the issues. I would really remind the member that our national housing strategy has been having an impact, and we have been measuring that. For the investments that we've made so far, and remember, it's a 10-year program, so of course we haven't spent all the money because it's a 10-year plan. And the fact that it's a 10-year plan is an effort that we're making as a government to show our partners that the federal government is not only back in this space, after a long period of absence, I may add, under your party, but that we want to be a reliable, dedicated, long-term, stable funding partner. And so far, we've invested $36 billion, which is a significant amount of money, to build or repair over 480,000 homes. That is not an insignificant number.
But
That's
it's not
number
enough.
one. Pardon?
But it's
of
not
course
enough.
it's not enough. There's more work to be done. But that is a lot of progress that we've made. In addition to that, as we're building and repairing more affordable housing units and purposely built rental units, we're also providing direct rental supports to tens of thousands of Canadians through the Canada Housing Benefit.
We're out of time,
yes, more
unfortunately,
work
but
needs to be done, but we've done a lot.
we're going to come back to this in a minute. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. Mr. Collins for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and welcome back, Minister and officials. I don't have any questions for the Minister, but I do for the staff that are present here. And I had the opportunity about a year ago, sitting in this same chair, to ask questions of CMHC. And my experience with CMHC historically hasn't been a positive one. Of course, I was a longtime city councillor since the mid-'90s, chaired our municipal nonprofit for many years. And I have to say that, I share in the frustration of many of the service providers who've sent issues to my office over the last year, being in this new chair here in this position here in Ottawa. So I guess it's important to recognize, as the Minister pointed out, that there were decades where the federal government was not involved in the federal housing scene. They were completely absent. In fact, downloaded those responsibilities to the provinces and municipalities, and in turn the province, under the Harris government, for those of us in Ontario, downloaded the responsibility of affordable housing to municipalities, and then municipalities and nonprofits since have been left to their own devices in terms of trying to find resources to make the situation better. And of course, that's almost impossible to do on the backs of local ratepayers. And so within that context, I think it's important to understand that a lot has changed with the plan that was put forward. I, as a councillor, wearing a different hat, celebrated the release of the National Housing Strategy. It is historic, notwithstanding what you might have just heard. The funds that were attached to that document are historic. These are records amounts of resources that have been provided to assist municipalities and nonprofit housing providers across the country. And so I think where things have stalled, in my personal opinion, is it's in its implementation. And so I have some questions to CMHC along those lines. And I would start with some of the complaints from service providers from my riding and my municipality, who've complained that the applications are long and onerous, and they're costly to municipalities and nonprofits. They complain that their verbal commitments are provided at the start of that process, and by the end of the process, which might take 18 months to 2 years, what was first promised by CMHC representatives at the start of the application process doesn't transpire at the end, and the amounts provided, either in a loan or grant form, fall far short from what was originally promised to them by whoever they were dealing with at CMHC. So I guess the concern that I have is that there's a lot of room for customer improvement here, and I asked you earlier at a previous meeting, about whether you do surveys to applicants. Of course, I think many are reluctant to bite the hand that feeds them, and so I would question, what the results are along those lines. But I must share with you my frustration in terms of just dealing with applicants in the last 6 to 8 months since the last time you were here, and it's all, I might as well be talking to myself in the hallway against the wall, because the responses I get, if I get them, they don't assist. And so I just question why we've given so much resources to an organization that just can't seem to help service providers help us, what many would call a crisis. I think it is a crisis. I think it's a crisis in municipalities. I think it's whether you're rural, urban, whatever. There is a crisis in this country, and I think that, for whatever reason, CMHC is unwilling or unable to provide the services that many require. And so along those lines, I would ask, Mr. Chairman, we recently talked about the Housing Accelerator Fund, and almost to a witness, people who appeared before this committee talked about how those funds should be distributed, and almost to a stakeholder, they went on to say that it should go directly to municipalities. They said it should go directly to FCM. They said it should go directly to the provinces. What they didn't say is that CMHC should receive those funds, and I found that quite telling. And so to start with the Housing Accelerator Fund, I would ask, are CMHC reps concerned about the fact that stakeholders from across the country provided information to the committee that suggested that CMHC should not be in charge of the Housing Accelerator Fund? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Is your question directed
It's to the reps. Yeah, not the minister. Yeah.
Okay, Madame Bowers, and you've got 2 minutes.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. And
1.5.
I appreciate that question, and customer service is very important to CMHC, and I'm very disappointed to hear the recent experience that the MP has had with CMHC. There's no doubt that CMHC has been out of direct housing delivery for many decades, and there were many lessons learned, especially in the early days of the delivery of the National Housing Strategy. We have made very dedicated efforts to improve our delivery. We've cut our delivery times by up to 50%. We do survey our clients at every step in the application process. We measure client satisfaction, their feelings about the efficiency of our process, and we have a feedback loop to make sure that any criticism or feedback is acted upon. And we reward our employees on the actual value of these scores. And I'd like to explore some of the specific instances of very bad client experience that's cited here, but just looking at CMHC Deliver as a whole, it's not to say we're perfect, but we're measuring the feedback that we get from our clients and acting on any disappointments or dissatisfaction with our
Thanks
service.
for that, Ms. Bowers. You know,
A short question.
One short one, and they're back next week, so that's fine. What I would say is that my concern is that was the answer provided last year. So my question would be, how many budget cycles does it take to get it right from an application perspective? So we're 5 or 6 budget years now into, for sure, they're back into the affordable housing game. My question would be, is it year 7, year 8? Like, when are they going to nail this down?
Short answer.
Yeah, so if I could provide an example. So in response to criticism from clients about the length of our application process, we instituted a new process for a contribution-only stream. Under that stream, applicants can complete applications in less than 10 minutes, and CMHC can provide within 4 weeks. This is a significant improvement in turnaround times, and we've received very positive feedback from our clients on that part of the initiative.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll revisit that. Monsieur Trudel, pour 6 minutes.
Mr. Trudel for 6 minutes. Thank you to all our witnesses, Ms. Bowers, Mr. Hussein, thank you for being here. This is a very important issue. My colleague asked earlier if there was a housing crisis and you didn't answer. I will be more direct. Mr. Hussein, the national strategy on housing, would you consider that it is a failure?
No. Okay.
No. You said earlier we have to build 3.5 million units of housing in the next few years in Canada, and the CMHC said that it had to be by 2030. The economist of the CMHC said that just in Quebec we needed more than 1 million in the next 10 years, that the market alone could only build 500,000. So in the next 10 years in Quebec, we need 600,000 units of housing to face 2 priority issues. So accessibility and affordability, which means that people can actually buy it. According to the housing defensor, we are halfway through. We have built 35,000. And we need in Quebec for somebody to intervene, the government or whoever, to build 600,000 housing units to succeed. And now you are telling me that the housing strategy is not a failure. Can you please explain that to me?
Very simple. Since the introduction of the National Housing Strategy, as I said, we've invested $36 billion to build or repair over 480,000 units across the country, including in Quebec. We have put in place the Canada Housing Benefit, which is now available.
Ça ferait combien au Québec? Excusez-moi, vous dites 480 000, mais mettons au Québec.
In Quebec, you say 480,000, but how many have been built in Quebec in the past 5 years?
Depuis,
Since 2015, we have invested more than $5.3 billion and more than 900 families to get housing. But how many units of housing have been built in Quebec since 2017? Since the implementation of the strategy.
And homes that were built and repaired across the country, I'm very sure that a significant portion were in Quebec. I will be able to get those.
Vous n'avez pas le chiffre au Québec, Monsieur Sam?
Okay. I don't have those.
Do you not have a number for Quebec?
Happy to get back.
Parce que bon, comprenez l'enjeu qu'on peut dépenser de l'argent.
We can spend money, but if we're not building, then we're not getting anywhere.
Like I really challenge your assertion. This program has been very effective in building affordable housing across the country, including in Quebec. You can say that we need to build more, but to say that we just spent money and nothing was built is completely not true. So I can't let you say that without challenging it. Thank you.
D'accord. Mais si...
All right, but if I tell you to repeat my question, according to the CMHC economists, they themselves say that the government has to intervene to build 600,000 units of housing in the next 10 years, or 5 years rather. This is kind of a Marshall Plan. You must acknowledge as well that we don't have what it takes. There 14.5% increase in rent just in Montreal, for example. So much data indicates that the crisis is more present than ever.
De notre engagement.
With our commitment, we are giving more than $400 million to Quebec for the rapid housing initiative. We are going to be building 346 new housing units with. And did you say 346 housing units, or 346,000? Sorry, 3,146 housing units across the province. I'm not sure that I understand, but I will go look at the Hansard. In January, a program was launched, which is quite interesting. They invested $5 million to send housing organizations, to buy housing units and extricate them from the market, which is quite interesting because what we're indicating here is that we cannot build enough for our needs. But what we're trying to do is that the housing units that we already have will be extricated from the market to protect affordability. This is something that Quebec housing organizations tell us is a very interesting measure. In British Columbia, they invested $500 million in such measures. Is this something that the federal government could possibly take and invest in?
You highlighted a very important point about the importance of helping nonprofits and municipal governments and provincial governments to have the same amount of capacity to compete with the private sector when it comes to securing property and land that has the potential for affordable housing. And I think it's an idea that I've heard from nonprofit stakeholders who are very concerned about the private sector always getting their hands on property that could potentially be used for affordable housing. And I think it's a good idea, and I'm happy to discuss that with you further.
For 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister and officials for being here. Speaking of slowness. I have many issues. But first off, just to get the record straight, in 1993, the federal Liberal government, canceled the National Affordable Housing Program. And that is succeeded with the Conservatives gutting the housing dollars for housing. And as a result, we lost housing altogether from the federal government. So consequently, we have a housing crisis, and it's been escalating, just to be clear. Now, I want to get very specific about the programs on the National Housing Initiative. There is the Co-Development Fund. We already talked about what a disaster it is in terms of its rollout. I want to, though, raise this question with the minister. If you look at the numbers, the distribution of the units, about 100,000 units have gone out across the country. But there are about 115,000 units that has received funding, commitments, but the money has not yet rolled out. Why?
The National Housing Co-Investment Fund has been an amazing tool to help with affordable housing.
Sorry, if I could just get a direct answer?
Well, I'm trying to. You are the one who said that this program has been a failure, and I'm trying to show you that it hasn't.
No, I'm asking the question, Mr. Chair, if I may, very specifically, why hasn't the funding that has received funding commitments for projects not rolled out?
Which funding commitments are you talking about? Because we have so many programs that flow funding for affordable housing. I'd like to answer your question.
For the Co-Development Fund, if you were listening to my question, I'm talking about the Co-Development Fund. 115,000 units have received funding commitments, but have not received the funding for the nonprofits. They're sitting there. And as we twiddle our thumb, the cost is going up. Those projects will become unviable. Why hasn't the funding flowed?
No one is twiddling their thumbs. This is a very serious matter, Mr. Chair, and I can show how successful this program has been. Of course, there's always more to do, but I'll turn to Ms. Bowers for a more technical answer on the flow of the money.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. We're halfway through the rollout of the co-investment fund, and we have conditionally committed half the funding for the 110,000 units that's referred to here. We provide funding to proponents as the construction proceeds. So to this date, we've actually about 27,000 units. The construction is completed, and all the funding has been dispersed. For all the other programs, we provide funding as the construction proceeds in the form of many advances. During the period of COVID, there was a slowdown in construction activity, but we are, CMHC is very committed to making sure that as soon as project advances are asked for, that the funds are provided. So it's funding that's not provided all at once, but during a gradual cycle as the building project comes to fruition. But just to comment, halfway through the program, we've committed half the funds and have achieved half the targets committed.
Well, I can tell you, I'm talking to nonprofit groups, and I'm sure that there are other MPs who are talking to nonprofit groups, and their project is ready to roll out. They even have matching funds. In the case of British Columbia, I have a project from my colleague, Richard Cannings, with a letter from the South Okanagan West Kootenay, the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society, ready to go, got their commitment, but can't get the funding. And lo and behold, what's happened? Oh, the government, CMHC, through the minister, made a decision that units, instead of getting an estimated of up to $50,000 to $75,000 per unit, they're now limited to only getting $25,000 per unit. As the cost is escalating, these projects will become unviable. And in the response, to my various different colleagues asking for help in projects, all responded, by the way, on February the 8th with different responses signed by the minister, right? I have one letter signed by the minister telling people to my colleague Leah Gazan in the situation with Winnipeg to go look to the co-investment for funding. Then the people from the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society has been advised by CMHC that the money from the Co-Development Fund has been depleted. There is no money to be had. On the around the same time, I wrote to the minister about the co-development fund, asking about the $25,000 limitation. When did that kick in and who made that decision? Back in November of last year, I got a response on February the 8th as well, signed by the minister, talking about everything else except for that, answering that question. So I would, so first off, I would dispute the notion that money is flowing when they're ready. Because this project is ready. They're about to lose the funding. They're about to actually lose the project if they don't get the funding. And this is the reality. So they're ready to roll. The only people that's holding them up happens to be CMHC on the co-development fund. On the issue around the $25,000 limitation, who made that decision and when did it come into play?
So, Chair, I can't comment on the specific project that's been mentioned here, but very happy to take the details and follow up on the particular circumstances of that project. With respect to the $25,000 limit, I recognize that it is challenging for nonprofits to work with lower levels of contribution, but in some ways there is been such a demand for the contribution funding that we've had to ration it to ensure that the contribution funding gets to as many projects as possible.
Well, the demand.
Mr. Aitchison for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, back to the Auditor General's report where she reported that the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation or Infrastructure Canada, neither agency felt that they were really accountable for the achievement of the strategy's target to reduce chronic homelessness by 50%. No one was really accountable. But of course, it was reported that somebody would be named accountable by the end of the year. So there's no one really quarterbacking what's going on between these two ministries and the multi-billion-dollar programs that they're supposed to be offering. Where we've also heard from even your own colleagues here, Minister, that CMHC is where oftentimes projects go to die because community groups just can't get any money out of it. Who is the quarterback? Is it you?
So Mr. Chair, there's a lot to unpack there again. So let me try to do my best to answer that question. So the member referred to the Auditor General's report, and I want to begin by saying that we came out very clearly thanking the Auditor General for the recommendations, the performance audit, and we agree with their findings. We're implementing their recommendations. But Reaching Home is a very important program that delivers direct supports to the frontline organizations that are serving those experiencing homelessness. And what the Auditor General highlighted was the need for more efforts to collect the data and then analyze it and transfer it to
Minister, I'm going to cut you off there. What the Auditor General pointed out was the need for someone to be accountable. Yeah. Someone to be accountable. And we've pointed out, apparently, that we'll have someone accountable by the end of this year, halfway through the National Housing Strategy. And so my question was very simple. Who is accountable? Ultimately, I assume it's you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer that question. Of course, I'm accountable, but what the member refers to is the Auditor General's report. That report focused on one program, which is Reaching Home. The report was not looking at CMHC or the broader national housing strategy. So I think the member is kind of mixing and overlapping two different issues.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've claimed accountability. That's great. I think that's excellent.
Sure, but I'm happy to answer.
So I'm going to move on because I think it's great that you've accepted accountability for this, even though you won't accept that it's a crisis, even though some of your colleagues agree. Just for interest's sake, I did look up what a crisis is. It's a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. I guarantee you the people that are trapped in tent cities that are growing all across this country would call it a crisis. The number of young people who've given up hope of ever owning a home, they would call it a crisis. The number of people who simply cannot find a place to rent would call it a crisis. And so my question, Minister, is what is it? If it's just a challenge, and we're gonna have a quarterback by the end of the year, we're gonna have coordination of things halfway through this program. What if you don't call this a crisis? What is a crisis?
So I'll tell you, if I may, Mr. Chair, what the impact of the federal investments to tackle homelessness is achieving. The member kind of alluded to the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General's report recommended that we collect data better, we analyze better. But the fact of the matter is those investments are making an impact. 62,000 people were prevented from joining the ranks of those who are experiencing homelessness. 32,000 people were given permanent housing solutions through our federal investments. We're supporting over 3,000 projects run by
Minister,
over 1,000 organizations.
I'm going to interrupt again to say I agree with you. It's having an impact. There's no question about it. It is having an impact. The question is, how are we going to make sure it has enough of an impact? Because it's clearly not enough. And so in a crisis, in a challenge, as you refer to it, like this, it's an all-hands-on-deck approach. It has to be. It has to be an all-of-government, all levels of government approach.
Absolutely.
So, for example, just quickly, because we're running out of time, would you support efforts at the federal level to tie federal infrastructure funding to municipalities to results on the ground, getting approvals in place, speeding up the process? Even the CMHC reports that we need to speed up the approvals process at the municipalities. Even they agree. Would you agree with that kind of an approach?
So, Mr. Chair, I think the member hasn't really looked at what we have presented in terms of the Housing Accelerator Fund. That's exactly what we intend to do, which is to help municipalities remove the barriers that prevent them from adding more housing supply across the country. And it's unfortunate because I was hoping that your party would actually support that effort because you always talk about gatekeepers. But that was an effort for us to work collaboratively with municipalities to remove those barriers to development. And, you know, you all voted against it. And here you are talking about municipalities preventing development, yet we have a $4 billion program that is meant to help exactly deal with the problem that you highlight, which I agree with, but you won't support the solution.
Yeah.
So it's very ironic, and I hope you change your mind.
Mr. Long for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you to the Minister and everybody else for coming this afternoon. I appreciate what you do for us and for all Canadians. I'll give you a hockey analogy, and I do that often, maybe too much. You know, if I inherited a hockey team that for the previous 8 years didn't spend a cent on marketing or a cent on enticing season ticket holders, and then I took that team and came up with a plan to build, to increase my fan base, sell more tickets. Those plans take time. And certainly, I know Ms. Bowers made a point last time we talked to CMHC, and it did stick with me, is that, you know, really, even CMHC wasn't in the housing business till 2015-16. These programs do take time. And sure, we have a serious situation across our country. People do need homes, and people need homes that are affordable. But, you know, I certainly applaud what we're doing. I think we're certainly on the right track. We're making the right investments. I came into politics when housing agreements were basically expired. Nonprofits didn't know what was going to happen next. We came forth, we renewed those agreements, we extended those agreements, we came up with the Canada Housing Benefit, the Federal Co-Investment Fund. I don't know of a project in my riding. Sure, it's bureaucratic. And, you know, Ms. Bowers, we talked about how I want to see CMHC become more entrepreneurial and less bureaucratic. And I know you take that point. But I can name you many, many projects in my riding that have benefited from CMHC's investment, have benefited from our government's investment. Minister, you know, you've been in the riding several times. I want to focus right now on the Rapid Housing Initiative. I know we've had 2 successful rounds. We have round 3. We just recently announced a $3.6 million investment to support 12 transitional housing units for Coverdale Center for Women. Wonderful project. I want more of them in the riding. I certainly recognize through Budget 2022, we've made historic investments through the extension of the Rapid Housing Initiative. I think it's a great program. Minister, can you provide us with an update on the rollout of the investments made in Budget 2022? Thank you.
In terms of the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, you've heard from President Romy Bowers that halfway in the 10-year National Housing Strategy, that program has been able to get, half of the results that, like the results that they were supposed to get halfway through the strategy. And in terms of the Rapid Housing Initiative, again, because of the success of the first and second round, we're seeing that budget 2022 again allocated $1.5 billion to the third round of the Rapid Housing Initiative. This has been a really successful program for municipalities and nonprofits to rapidly build deeply affordable homes for the most vulnerable. If you look at the money that we're bringing forward through the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, $2.9 billion from future years to now, so that we can get more money out the door and build over 22,000 deeply affordable housing units. I would say, on all the efforts and the allocations in budget 2022, the effort is being made to either get the money out the door or build the partnerships that are necessary to then flow the money. I'm very excited about the Housing Accelerator Fund. I think it'll make a huge and sustained difference beyond the life of the program, for example.
I'm going to let you continue, but I just want to talk about the Accelerator Fund. Is that something, certainly my community of St. John Rosse is excited about that fund. I think it'll be very helpful, whether it's through, organization or land acquisition or what have you. When do you think, in your best estimate, we'll see that fund?
I would say in the next few weeks we will come out with a public announcement on moving forward, and I expect that following that there'll be engagement with municipalities, local governments, Indigenous communities on how they can access that program. This is a key commitment that we made to Canadians, that the federal government will be there to really become a partner to municipalities, not just in investing in affordable housing, which is what the rest of the National Housing Strategy programs do, but this is about really creating systems changes so that we can unlock more and additional housing supply across the spectrum, from deeply affordable homes to rental units to attainable homes. And that $4 billion will be invested in those systems barriers that prevent more housing to be built in Canada. You heard previously the reference to the need to build 3.5 million additional homes by 2030. We have a gap in supply, and the Housing Accelerator Fund is one of the ways in which our government is ensuring that we not only build more housing through our other programs, but we also invest directly in local governments and municipalities and Indigenous communities to create those systems changes that will unlock additional housing, so that even beyond the life of the program, those changes will result in more housing supply over the many, many years to come.
Monsieur Trudel, oui, pour 2 minutes et demie.
Thank you very much. It's a little bit stunning to hear you say that halfway through the strategy we'll have we have half of the results, and we will have the rest in the next 5 years. You said there were 35,000 that were built, and I would really like to have some answers on your behalf. How are you going to get through the 480,000 that you talk about? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. But let's talk about solutions. I think that we have established that there is a crisis and the strategy is not working. There are things that are working. There are certain strategies that were applauded. For example, the program, the ICRL, which is underfunded, but it is effective. The program of co-investment, which creates $2,000 housing, I don't know how that helps us. I think that's the kind of housing that poorer people can't pay or afford. But if we had something like the Rapid Housing Initiative, which would allow people to occupy housing quickly, is that a kind of solution you have thought about?
So I think, Mr. Chair, there's a lot in there. I don't agree with the member's characterization that housing that is built through the co-investment fund is unaffordable. The whole point of the co-investment fund is to build deeply affordable homes. So I don't agree with that. He also talked about how we have established that the national housing strategy is not working. I don't agree with that. And the numbers show that. Not only have our investments so far resulted in 480,000 homes built or repaired through $36 billion in investments. But we know the number of families that have been helped in Quebec. Over 409,000 families in Quebec have been impacted by our federal programs, either directly through rental supplements or through housing.
Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que vous considérez qu'un logement de 2 000 à Montréal
Do you consider that a housing unit that costs $2,000 a month in Montreal is affordable?
I was referring to the co-investment fund. You said the co-investment fund results in a $2,000 unit. That's not the case.
Oui.
It doesn't. It is deep. It's much more affordable than that. So I think you're referring to another program or some other building.
Non, je pourrais vous envoyer l'article du journal.
No, I could send you the journal, the newspaper article.
2.5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you very much. All right, I want to actually turn to a different issue on the Canada Housing Benefit.
Yeah.
The Canada Housing Benefit was clear to say that it's meant to target people with the lowest income. However, the government changed the criteria, and back on the government's own website in November of 2020, and even as late as December 27th, it was not listed to say that people who are on social assistance or rental assistance having their rent paid directly to the landlord would be excluded from this program. This was added, I think, in around February the 3rd. And so consequently, now people are applying and no longer eligible. So why is the government excluding people on income assistance and disability for the eligibility of the $500 housing benefit? When was this decision made and by whom? And why was this only posted on the government's website in February? And so the overriding question is this: who is this housing benefit for if it is not intentionally, if the government is intentionally excluding the lowest income people? And it's not because they're not qualified because of their income. They're not qualified because their rent is paid directly to the landlord out of the program that they're in, usually income assistance. Why?
So I would say that this is a program that is crucial to helping almost 2 million Canadian renters. With the cost of rent, this $500 top-up will help people. It's on top of the existing Canada Housing Benefit. In terms of the income thresholds, they're really intended
Sorry,
to
I'm going to interrupt for a second here. It's not about the threshold. It's not in the legislation. It does not say that people on income assistance or have their provincial territorial rental assistance program having their rent paid directly to the landlord would be disqualified for this program. It does not say that in legislation. However, in around February, the government changed that criteria and added that in the website. How come that was put in there? Who made that decision?
The eligibility criteria for this benefit is the same across the country. It is really meant to ensure access to the benefit in each province and territory. In terms of that particular nuance that the member brings up, I'm happy to have officials get back to you on that. But I know that the criteria was set up in consultation with folks to ensure that there's equal access.
So is the minister saying he didn't make that change?
Concluded.
Maybe I can get
Minister,
the answer in writing from the minister.
Fine, he can provide the answer. Ms. Kwan, thank you. Thank you, Minister and departmental officials, for appearing. Committee, before we adjourn, we have the news release on the Black community study. Is it the wish of the committee to accept that you all received it a couple of days ago? That the report will be tabled in the House.
I took a look at it, yeah.
Okay. Seeing no, Ms. Kwan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder on the questions that I just
Yes,
asked
we
of the
want
officials
to
that the
share.
minister
Yeah.
defer to his officials. Could we get the answer before the Friday meeting? Because I think it's very important that we get that information.
The minister will provide the answer when the minister can. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, members. So I have approval, seeing no dissent on the news release. Meeting adjourned.